So Abraham, he lies about his wife to try to save his own hide. And essentially what he's saying is, I don't trust you, God. I don't trust that you're going to save my life. I'm scared that if I tell the truth and do what's right, that you're not going to come through for me. That's essentially what Abraham is saying, and that's what God hears. God says to Abraham, I'm going to bless you with a child. Even in your old age, as old as you are, as old as your wife is, I am going to bless you with a child. Now that was a big thing. That was a huge blessing. And God had already made this commitment to Abram that he was going to be a great nation. So there is some wondering there. But Abraham and Sarah, they get to a point where what? What happens? They say, you know what, God? You made this promise to us, but it hasn't happened yet. So maybe what we need to do is take things into our own hands. So Sarah says, Abraham, you need to have this child, so take the servant. Take this servant girl and go have a child with her. Maybe that's what we need to do. Maybe God didn't mean that it was going to be me and you. You just need to have this child because we're getting too old. Take the servant girl and have the child through her. That was not God's plan. They strayed from God's plan because they were not patient. They would not wait on God. And they did it their own way, and it did not work out well. So I think they learned from that lesson. So here in chapter 22, they finally do have that child of promise, Isaac. And then he says, sometime later, God tested Abraham. He said to him, Abraham, here I am, he replied. Then God said, take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains I will tell you about. And early the next morning, Abraham got up and saddled his donkey. He took with him 2 of his servants and his son Isaac. And when he had cut enough wood for the burnt offering, he set out for the place God had told him about. On the 3rd day, Abraham looked up and saw the place in the distance. He said to his servants, stay here with the donkey while I and the boy go over there. We will worship and then we will come back to you. Abraham took the wood for the burnt offering and placed it on his son Isaac, and he himself carried the fire and the knife. And the 2 of them went together. And Isaac spoke up and said to his father, Father? Yes, my son. The fire and the wood are here, but where's the lamb for the burnt offering? Abraham answered, God himself will provide, my son. Provide the lamb for the burnt offering, my son. And the 2 of them went on together. Now, you know how the story goes on. They reach the place, they set up the altar. Abraham throws his son up there and lifts the knife, but before he comes down on it, God stops him. Now, I don't believe that Abraham was lying to Isaac in this case. I don't believe that his intent was to be deceptive to Isaac. I just don't think at the bottom of the hill he wanted to say, you're the lamb, right? But and why I believe those things is in how Abraham words his message. The Lord will provide. That was such a huge growth step for Abraham. In this situation with Sarah, will the Lord provide? Abraham said, I don't think so. Not that I can really count on. I got to do it my own way. The baby, Isaac, that he would be born, did he and Sarah believe that the Lord would provide? No, they didn't. At least not in their time that they wanted to be. They said, no, God's not going to provide for us. We have to do things our own way. And now finally here, he gets it. And in probably the most severe of those things, I'm sure that Abraham would have rather died than to have to kill his own son, right? I'm sure that he would rather have just gone childless than to have had to kill his own son. And so in the most severe of the circumstances, it finally clicks in his faith and in his journey. And he's able to say to his son, God will provide. God will make a way. And the writer of Hebrews tells us that Abraham fully believed that even if he killed his son Isaac, that God would bring him back from the dead. That is how Abraham's faith had grown. And that is the faith that we need to strive for. The concept is not unique to Genesis 22. It is throughout the Bible. The Lord will provide. God has asked us to live our lives for him. He's asked us to love him and obey his commandments. And if we do that, we're promised that we'll have everything that we need. Right? Jesus says that on the Sermon on the Mount. And when he says, you don't have to worry about anything, about the clothes that you're going to wear, about the food that you're going to eat. You don't have to worry about tomorrow. Just seek first God's kingdom and righteousness. The first thing on our mind should be doing what's right. And God will supply everything else. The Lord will provide.